When your children don't respect you, it can feel like a deep wound that never stops aching. For many parents, especially those in their later years, this is not just a source of pain. It is often a quiet grief they carry in their hearts. They ask themselves silently in the dark of night, "What did I do wrong? Where did I lose them? Why do they speak to me with such indifference, sometimes even with anger? And most painfully of all, why do they no longer seem to care?" If you have ever felt this, you are not alone. And I want to begin by telling you something deeply important. This is not the end. You are not helpless. And there is a way forward, a path that is real, proven, and deeply effective. Now, the first instinct many parents have when facing disrespect is to get angry, to shout, to punish, or to retreat in silence and wait for the storm to pass. But this approach does not work. Studies in child psychology show that when children feel disconnected from their parents emotionally, discipline only deepens the divide. A study published in the Journal of Child and Family Studies found that children who experienced harsh discipline were significantly more likely to become defiant, not cooperative. The very thing you want to repair only grows wider. So what should you do instead? The answer begins with the way you show up. Your presence, your tone, your steadiness. Start with calm, and I do not mean silence. I mean the kind of calm that comes from a grounded heart, a calm that does not demand respect but invites it. Your children, no matter their age, are deeply affected by your emotional state. Neuroscientists at Harvard have shown that the emotional part of the brain, the amygdala, responds far more to tone and energy than to words. When you speak from a calm, firm, and emotionally honest place, their brains receive a signal that says, "Here is someone safe. Here is someone I should listen to." Not because they're loud, but because they are deeply rooted. Second, speak to them with the kind of dignity you wish they had for you. I know this may feel counterintuitive. Why should I show respect when I am not being respected? But here is the truth. Respect is not something we demand. It is something we model. And when you speak to your children with firm dignity, when you resist the urge to belittle or shame, when you stop sarcasm at the door and replace it with clarity and kindness, you are planting seeds in their subconscious that say, "This is what it looks like to be honorable. This is what love looks like when it stands tall." Let me tell you a story of a father named Gerald. Gerald was in his 70s. His adult son had grown distant and cold over the years. Every conversation was short, dry, sometimes even laced with passive aggression. Gerald used to respond with guilt and frustration. He would bring up old sacrifices. He would say, "I raised you. I gave you everything." But it only pushed his son farther away. One day, Gerald decided to do something different. He began every phone call with something simple and sincere. He would say, "I'm proud of you," not in a dramatic way, but as a calm truth, even when his son gave him nothing in return. And slowly, something began to shift. His son started asking him questions. He began calling more often. That wall of coldness began to melt. It took months, but it worked, because Gerald stopped fighting to be right and instead stood firmly in love. The third powerful shift is to listen more than you speak. Real listening, not the kind where you are waiting for your turn to respond, but the kind where you put down your armor and say, "I want to understand you, not fix you, not correct you, just understand." Dr. John Gottman, one of the most respected relationship researchers in the world, found that people who feel heard are far more likely to change their behavior than those who feel judged. This is true in marriages, friendships, and especially between parents and children. When you truly listen to your child, even if they are being rude or sharp, you are telling them, "You matter. I want to know who you are underneath that anger." Now, the fourth step is one that takes real courage. It is to apologize when needed, not with groveling, but with honesty. If there are things you regret, say them. If there are words you wish you had not spoken years ago, name them. Research from the University of California found that authentic apologies can restore emotional closeness even after decades of disconnection. You are not too old. It is not too late. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is, "I realize I hurt you when I did that, and I am sorry." This does not make you weak. It makes you brave. And in most cases, it makes your child feel seen. which is the first step toward respect. The fifth principle is consistency. Children of all ages, even grown adults, feel more secure when their parents are consistent in both their boundaries and their love. One of the most common reasons children lose respect is because they see unpredictability. One day you are patient, the next day you are explosive. One day you are kind, the next day cold. That inconsistency confuses them and leads to mistrust. Be the same, steady in your tone, clear in your expectations, gentle in your corrections, firm in your values. They may resist it at first, but over time, they will come to respect your steadiness far more than your strength. And finally, the sixth and most transformative action is to reconnect with your own self-worth. This may sound unrelated, but it is the foundation. When a parent feels unworthy, unseen, or unloved themselves, they often try to fill that void through their children's approval. They need to feel respected because deep down they do not respect themselves, and children can feel that. Whether you are 80 or 50 or 90, your sense of worth cannot depend on your children's behavior. It must come from within, from the quiet truth that you have lived a life of meaning, that your voice matters, that your heart has value. When you walk in that truth, your children sense it, and they begin to treat you differently, not out of fear, but out of deep human recognition. A study conducted by Dr. Kristen Neff, a pioneer in self-compassion research, found that people who practice daily affirmations of self-worth experience higher levels of confidence in their relationships. They are less reactive, less defensive, more loving. You can begin by speaking to yourself each morning, out loud if you can. I am worthy of love and respect. I have done my best. I am learning every day. These are not just words. They are emotional medicine, and they change the way you show up, which changes the way your children respond. This journey of regaining respect is not about being perfect. It is about being present, real, humble, and strong in spirit. It is about showing up each day with the courage to choose love over ego, listening over lecturing, understanding over control. You do not need to win arguments. You do not need to fix everything. You need only to be a steady presence in the storm, like a lighthouse, standing tall, unmoving, offering your light again and again. Even when the waves crash, if your children are distant, disrespectful, or cold, begin with one small shift. Choose calm over chaos, dignity over defense, presence over punishment, and watch what happens, not overnight, but over time. Their hearts, no matter how closed, still long for connection, still long to look into the eyes of a parent who sees them with love. You are still that parent. You still matter. And your love, when offered wisely and consistently, still holds power. So the next time your child rolls their eyes, or dismisses your words, or speaks with sharpness, do not rise to the bait, do not shout, do not shrink, do not threaten. Breathe, stand tall, speak from the grounded place within you that knows who you are, and choose the path of quiet strength, again and again, until one day, without even realizing it, they begin to look at you differently, with curiosity, with gratitude, with respect. You have not failed. This is not the end. It is the beginning of a deeper, more mature chapter in your relationship, and it starts now, with your next breath, with your next word, with your next choice. You are not powerless. You are a parent, and your love, when rooted in truth and strength, still holds the power to heal. Can you still have a relationship without their respect? Can you still have a relationship without their respect? That is a question that lingers heavily in the hearts of many parents, especially those in their later years. I have heard it spoken softly in quiet rooms. I have seen it behind the eyes of strong men and strong women who raised families with everything they had. And now they sit with the silence, or worse, the coldness, the sharp words, the disrespect, and they wonder, is it still possible? Can I still hold a relationship with my child, even when the respect I hoped for never seems to come? Let me tell you the truth. Yes, you can still have a relationship, but it will not be the same relationship you once imagined. and it will not be built on the same ground. To stay connected to someone who does not show you respect takes a very different kind of strength. Not the strength to fight back, but the strength to stay steady and to love wisely. We often think that respect is the foundation of relationship, but it is not. It is the fruit. The foundation is connection. The foundation is presence. The foundation is being able to say, I am here, I care. Even if we do not agree, even if we see the world differently, even if you treat me in a way I do not deserve. That is where the relationship begins. And from that, respect sometimes grows again. Now, I will be very honest with you. Not every child will come around. Some will stay distant. Some will continue to speak with bitterness or blame. Some will keep rewriting the past. And this is where your work begins. Not in changing them, but in protecting your own heart, while keeping the door open. A powerful study from the University of Minnesota found that long-term parent-child relationships often follow a pattern of rupture and repair. Meaning, conflict is not the end of the relationship. Disconnection is not the final chapter, but the ability to stay open to repair, to healing. That is what makes the difference. The parents who were willing to stay emotionally available, even while holding firm boundaries, were more likely to rebuild meaningful contact over time. So the question becomes, can you stay emotionally open, even when you are not being respected? That does not mean tolerating abuse. That does not mean letting yourself be mistreated. It means not closing your heart, not cutting them off completely unless your safety or sanity requires it. It means being a steady presence, someone who does not lash out, someone who does not return cruelty with cruelty, but also someone who does not let themselves be stepped on. A relationship without respect is possible, but it must be built on truth, and that truth begins with naming what is real. Saying gently, I want to have a relationship with you, but I feel hurt when you speak to me that way. I want us to be close, but I need to be treated with kindness. These are not demands, they are truths, and when spoken calmly and clearly, they plant seeds. Not every seed will grow, but some will, and that is enough. Dr. Dan Siegel, a clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA, speaks often about the power of connection before correction. He found in over 2 decades of research that when parents lead with a desire to understand and connect, rather than to criticize or control, children, even adult children, are more likely to lower their defenses, more likely to soften, more likely to respect over time. Not always, but often enough that it matters. But what if your child continues to speak to you with no regard, no warmth, no civility? Can you still have a relationship? Yes, but it may need to be a limited one. There are different kinds of relationships. Some are close and daily. Some are more distant but still loving. And some are what I call boundary relationships, where the connection exists, but it has clear limits, limits that protect your emotional health. You may need to decide, I will answer when they call, but I will not chase. I will invite them to family gatherings, but I will not plead. I will speak to them with respect, but I will not allow myself to be degraded. That is not bitterness. That is wisdom. That is the strength of a mature heart. And remember this, the way someone treats you is not always about you. Sometimes it is about their own pain, their own confusion, their own unresolved wounds. That does not excuse it, but it explains it. And understanding that can help you let go of the shame. It can help you stop blaming yourself. You may not be the cause, but you can still be the calm. You can still be the peace. You can still be the one who brings light into the room. Another key idea comes from a longitudinal study at Stanford University, which followed parents and children over 30 years. It found that even in fractured families, simple acts of consistent love made a difference over time. A birthday card, a short phone call, a word of encouragement. These things did not always bring immediate change, but they were remembered and often became the beginning of reconnection in later years. So can you still have a relationship without their respect? Yes, but it will not be an easy one. It will require you to hold your heart steady, to speak your truth quietly, to love without needing to control, and to protect your spirit with healthy boundaries. You do not need to accept mistreatment, But you also do not need to close the door unless you must. You can be both soft and strong, kind and clear, present and protected. Your value does not come from how your child treats you. It comes from who you are, what you have given, the love you continue to offer. And sometimes, that love is quiet. It is not dramatic. It is not always returned, but it is powerful. If you are in that place today, wondering if it is worth it, wondering if you should keep trying, let me offer you this. Keep showing up, not with desperation, but with dignity. Keep being the one who remembers birthdays, the one who says, "I love you," the one who stands calm in the storm. Even if they never change, you will have done your part, and you will be able to rest knowing that your love was steady, that your heart was true. That is not weakness, that is wisdom, that is strength, that is what makes a parent, and that is how relationships survive. Even without respect, even when the road is long, even when it hurts, through quiet love, through truth, through grace, you are not alone, and it is not too late.